So you're a saxophonist who's wanting to learn to play the clarinet or get better at playing the clarinet. Well, good for you. You're picking the superior instrument. And in this video, I'm going to give you my tips for coming to the clarinet from the saxophone. My name is Josh Gu, and I'm taking my years of experience learning, teaching, and performing, and sharing all of my best clarinet and music tips so you can get more out of your practice, and most importantly, have fun. You can learn more about all of my many resources at quickstartclarinet.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Okay, don't tell anybody, this is a secret, but I actually also play the saxophone. Clarinet was my primary instrument, and I learned clarinet first, and really have only dabbled in saxophone. I wouldn't call myself a great saxophonist by any means, but I do know enough about playing the saxophone to understand pretty well how it's different from clarinet, and I think I have some good ideas that if you're a saxophonist learning the clarinet, either because you're switching instruments or you're doubling on clarinet and things like that, I think I can give you some good tips on how to think about the clarinet a bit differently from the saxophone so that you can find good success on the clarinet. The first big important thing are the open tone holes. The saxophone obviously doesn't have holes that you actually have to cover, so it becomes really important to cover the holes of the clarinet well. I know I joked about clarinet being the superior instrument, but that's probably just because, in all honesty, the saxophone's the superior instrument. It was designed later. It was much more deliberately designed. The clarinet was kind of like, started off as a Chalumeau. Somebody slapped a register key on it, and then they were like, oh, maybe we should put more keys on it so that it plays chromatically. But this cylindrical bore is like not even supposed to physically function. So the clarinet is honestly a little bit of a hot mess. But that's important as you are coming from the saxophone. The saxophone, especially really nice saxophones, are very ergonomic. The keys land really nicely. Again, you don't have to actually cover the holes, so the actual keys that you press don't even have to necessarily be over the holes. So it's just really ergonomic to hold the saxophone. Good, well-designed clarinets are also pretty ergonomic. You don't have to do anything too crazy, but it's a little bit different than the saxophone because the holes have to be where they have to be. So that means you have to get your fingers where the holes are. Just like saxophone technique, it is best practice to just have a nice, relaxed, natural hand shape and be able to bring that to the clarinet. But you may find that the relationship to the thumb rest and things like that are a bit different to actually get your natural hand shape covering the holes of the instrument. If you're squeaking, always, always, always blame the squeaks on the fingers first and look and see what hole am I maybe not covering. A pro tip, it's always or almost always the ring fingers because they're the smaller fingers covering the bigger holes. So it's very easy to miss with the ring fingers and not cover those perfectly. The other part of playing the clarinet as a saxophonist that you're going to find interesting are the pinky keys and the throat tone keys. The throat tones are G, second to bottom line of the staff, to B flat. Those notes are notoriously bad sounding on clarinet for the same reason that the C sharp or D flat is notoriously bad sounding on the saxophone. There's just less instrument actually resonating to get those to work. I would say that the throat tones on the clarinet are significantly worse than the C sharp on saxophones, so have fun dealing with those. The other thing on saxophone is you don't have this many keys that you really press with these fingers. And again, they're not as ergonomically set up as the actual palm keys on the saxophone. My recommendation and the thing to work on is figuring out how to independently hit those with just the finger moving rather than moving the whole wrist and adjusting the whole hand position, which is going to take a little bit of discipline to get used to there. And then the pinky keys, yeah, I probably agree that saxophone pinky keys are set up more efficiently with the rollers than clarinet pinky keys. The Germans agree because the German clarinets are set up very similar to saxophone pinky keys and have roller keys and all of that stuff. But you're going to have to get used to the pinky keys. The same thing applies as these throat tone keys. Really focus on minimal and independent finger motion. This is going to combine with the hole closing problem, and this is one of the most common reasons for squeaks, is we're going from like B to C sharp doing our chromatic scale or something, and we don't have that good independent bending of the pinky, so you end up moving the whole hand. And again, on saxophone, that doesn't matter because you're not going to move so far that you slip off with a key and totally open it. But on clarinet, if you can see really closely, if I move my whole hand, now I'm leaking from that hole. So it's really important to have independent pinky motion as you're moving around all of the pinky keys. You can do an exercise like that where you move, just practice going around and playing so you can hear if any squeaks happen, and do that with both the right and left pinky keys to practice that independent pinky motion. One of my favorite exercises too, which would actually probably be helpful for building pinky strength for the roller keys on the saxophone too, is to just hold your hands up and then bend the pinkies without bending the ring fingers, which is a little bit trickier than it may look. And then if you can do that in circles as well without moving the ring finger, that's really good practice that you can do anytime, whether you have the instrument out or not. Now, the last tip that I want to give for saxophonists coming to clarinet is that the voicing and kind of embouchure is going to feel different. I think it's a little bit overrated how much different the embouchure is. I think the embouchure for clarinet and saxophone is actually pretty similar. We want a pretty firm bottom lip. Maybe clarinet's a little bit firmer and a little bit more pointed chin, especially depending on your saxophone embouchure. Some saxophonists get away with a really squishy bottom lip and a really curled bottom lip. That won't work on clarinet, but in my opinion, a good saxophone embouchure is a pretty flat chin, pretty good supportive bottom lip, and then round all the way around. Same thing for clarinet. Firm bottom lip, flat chin, good corners in, good top lip coming down, good support all the way around the mouthpiece. So that's not too different, but I think the voicing is more different. On saxophone, I think when you go to get the low notes out, you really have to like ha, ha, like really open up and drop the tongue and have really sort of slow horizontal air. I think when you go to the high notes, you can get away with a little bit more of like a he. So saxophone, and this, maybe I'm just playing saxophone wrong. So if you're a great saxophone player and you disagree with this, absolutely let me know in the comments. But for me, I find if I'm going to low notes, it's ha, and then to high notes, he, ha, he, ha, he, ha, he, ha, he, and there's actually a change in sort of the vowel a little bit as I'm going through the range of the instrument. Not too dramatic. I think we're always trying to minimize it as much as possible. But on clarinet, it's much, much more important to not do that. If you do that, then you're going to get really honky low notes and really thin high notes where you get something sort of like this. That would be me sort of playing the clarinet with saxophone voicing. For clarinet, we want just exactly the same voicing all the time, always in that sort of E, U, kind of either the German O umlaut or the French EU, that E, E, E kind of thing. So it's even all the way into the altissimo. It's very just there's maybe a little bit of adjustment, like tiny bit. It's going to feel like way less adjustment than you do on the saxophone moving through the range. So those are my top tips for saxophonists who are picking up clarinet for the first time or wanting to improve your clarinet playing. If you know somebody who is doubling on saxophone and clarinet and they're primarily a saxophonist, feel free to send this to them. hopefully if you're in that situation, you found this helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, or if you're a doubler on saxophone and clarinet, anything else that you found that is really significantly different between the two instruments, so we can have a really good sort of collection of advice here, because doubling on clarinet and saxophone is very, very common. And if you're primarily a saxophonist and you have some good tips for coming from clarinet to saxophone, I would love to hear those in the comments as well, so I can maybe become a better saxophone player myself as well. So thanks for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in another one. And last but not least, a huge heartfelt thank you to the Dennersons. This is like the Quick Start Clarinet family who supports the channel and helps to make everything that I do possible. If you would like to support the channel and get some awesome rewards in return, where we can work one-on-one over video and you can have my full support moving forward on your clarinet journey, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/supporter.